gives me a great pleasure to welcome all the three ministers as well as the dignitaries here present to the headquarters of the Nigerian Correctional Service here in Sauka for the flag off the presidential release of inmates granted by presidential pardon and clemency at Kuje Custodial Center, something that will replicate in all other custodial centers across the country. So as you're aware, on the 6th of April of this month, we have 73,756 inmates, out of which this number, only 21,773 are convicted, and the remaining 51,983 are awaiting trial cases. And out of also this number, 1,467 are female inmates. As a result of this COVID-19, that is within the entire continent and the world over, it has become more apparent for government to look into the issue of those incarceration. And we're happy that as a service, we have taken measures to ensure that COVID-19 does not see the doors of any of our custodial centers. And I'm happy to report that so far we have not had any case of any COVID-19 in any of the custodial centers across the country. Added to this, we will say we are grateful and we want our minister, the Minister of Interior, to convey our appreciation and gratitude to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammad Buhari, for granting pardon and for also the Minister initiating this release that will come over, will be granted by all the governors. It will go a long way in reducing the number of inmates that we have in our custody. Finally, I wish also to thank all those who have, in one way or the other, contributed to making this day happen. I thank you very much for listening, and I welcome all.
I'm delighted to be part of today's historic events. The flag off of the 2020 presidential pardon and clemency granted recently by Mr. President to convicts in correctional and custodial centers across the country as part of the urgent measures taken towards the speedy decongestion of correctional custodial centers in the country in view of the COVID-19 pandemic. The United Nations had called on countries of the world to consciously reduce the population of prison inmates, since physical distancing and self-isolation in such conditions are practically impossible. In his recent broadcast to the nation, Mr. President succeeded in putting in place urgent measures to ensure speedy decongestion of the custodial centers towards the control of COVID-19 pandemic. By so doing, Mr. President has once again demonstrated his sincerity and commitment to decongest the overcrowded Nigerian correctional centers. Since the President broadcast to the nation, several meetings have been held by the Presidential Task Force on Custodial Decongestion to consolidate on plans and efforts to carry out the directives of Mr. President. And what we are doing here today is one of the major outcomes of these meetings. With the list of beneficiaries commenced in 2018, when sequel to Mr. President's approval, the Presidential Advisory Committee on Prerogative of Mercy, PACAPM, was inaugurated on the 28th day of August 2018 to advise the President in granting pardon, clemency to deserving inmates and ex-convicts in line with the provisions of Section 175 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. In carrying out the assignment, the committee adopted the use of interviews, observations, consultations, and relevant documents called for and received from each of the correctional service centers in Nigeria. The committee visited a good number of correctional centers in the 6 geopolitical zones of the country to interact and identify those eligible for presidential pardon or clemency. Upon the conclusion of the assignment, a report of the committee containing the list of beneficiaries considered and recommended for pardon or clemency was submitted for the information and necessary action by Mr. President. Out of the 176 persons interviewed, presidential pardon has been granted to 2 inmates. Mr. President granted clemency to 39 inmates as recommended by the committee, out of which 4 inmates are from Kuje Correctional Service Center, which we hope to visit today for the purpose of effecting the release of affected persons, among others. In addition, Mr. President has also graciously granted pardon to 5 ex-convicts. My office will take necessary steps to publish the names of these beneficiaries in the Federal Gazette in line with the extant laws and regulations. In furtherance to the efforts to put COVID-19 under control, Mr. President requests appropriate authorities to embark on a visit to all correctional custodial centers within their respective states to identify and release deserving inmates as compiled and processed by the correctional service. During the visit, there should be conditional or unconditional release of awaiting trial persons who have spent a substantial number of years in custody, especially those with no sufficient legal basis to remain in custody. Mr. President has requested that particular attention should be on the aged, especially those with terminal health issues, low-risk offenders, as well as payment of fines for convicts of lesser offenses with option of fines who are in custody because of their inability to pay such fines. On behalf of Mr. President, I must warn all its beneficiaries to desist from crime and criminality and be of good behavior. They must write their individual life stories. They must rebuild broken walls in their dignity by diligently using experience and various empowerments and trainings received while in custody positively to better their lives to the fullest. On behalf of Mr. President, I urge the communities and general public to open their hands of fellowship in receiving the beneficiaries. We must ensure that they are properly reintegrated into the society without any form of stigmatization and discrimination. I have confidence in the selection processes, and if Mr. President has pardoned them, we have a collective responsibility to as well be forgiven. I urge well-meaning Nigerians to do something positive to better their lots and livelihood, including offering them jobs. It is expected that proper integration will strengthen their individual resolve to live in line with the acceptable social norms and values. Ladies and gentlemen, the current state of our correctional centers is unfortunately very alarming. There is no gainsaying that the facilities are to some extent vastly overcrowded and overstretched with inmates. As a government, steps are being taken, both legislative and otherwise, in ensuring that the trend is indeed the challenges associated with congestion of the prisons are indeed adequately addressed. We have, in that respect, bring about legislations inclusive of administration of Criminal Justice Act and indeed the Correctional Service Act, which have in their effect substantially assisted in bringing about the desired decongestion of the correctional centers formations across the country. We must identify new measures and have been indeed working in that direction to reduce the number of inmates in Nigerian custodial centers, not only for the control of COVID-19 scourge, but forever. We must primarily look into the cases of persons awaiting trial and individuals convicted of minor offenses for which fines were the penalty. It is particularly worrisome that about 70% of the inmates in Nigerian prisons are awaiting trial. This situation contradicts the provisions of the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, which provides for the limited use of free trial detention or major entry point of awaiting trial inmates in Nigeria. We must invoke free trial detention only when certain conditions are manifestly present to make it the last option. A lot of discretion is by the Correctional Service Act accorded the correctional centers formation for the purpose of facilitating the decongestion of correctional custodial centers formation across the country. It is point of note that the government had indeed taken drastic steps towards the decongestion of correctional centers, and the legislations relating thereto are indeed some of the innovations that are introduced in that direction. It is for these and myriads of other challenges that the Office of the Attorney General will continue to fine-tune the roadmap and comprehensive action plan, working with the Ministry of Interior to ensure that permanent gains are achieved in the work on reformation of correctional institutions and decongestion of correctional centers in Nigeria, in collaboration with critical stakeholders in the administration of justice. On this note, I would like to congratulate the beneficiaries And on this note further, like the Holy Book said, the beneficiaries must go home and sin no more. My Lord, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are open for collaboration with all stakeholders, including development partners and other organizations, to improve the state of our correctional centers as we take more giant strides towards building a new generation of correctional centers and a better model of correctional centers management in Nigeria. It is on behalf of Mr. President that I flag off this process. I thank you for your attention, and may God bless us all. Thank you.
The actual release will be at the Kuje Custodial Center. This is the ceremonial part of it, in which policy statements will be made. You have heard the speech of the Attorney General of the Federation, setting the ground rules of what we are here for. So I'm just here to add some spices to what he has said. And I titled my speech, "Compassion is the basis for all morality." It's a quote. It's not an original idea or thought of mine. It is a quote from Arthur Schopenhauer, who felt that we should remind ourselves of the need to be compassionate. Compassion is the basis of all morality, is the title of my speech. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this conference, press conference. It was the great American president and statesman, Abraham Lincoln, who once said, and I quote him, I've always found mercy. I've always found that mercy bears richer fruits than strict justice." End of quote. I've always found that mercy bears richer fruits than strict justice. End of quote. We are passing through the most challenging times, the like of which we have never seen in the annals of our nation. As we are all aware, coronavirus, COVID-19, has and continues to wreak havoc globally. More than 1 million people have been afflicted globally, while almost 90,000 lives have been lost since the disease broke out in December last year in Wuhan, China. We have been fortunate in Nigeria with a relatively low number of infections and deaths, though most regrettable still, and I must therefore commend all Nigerians, particularly the medical personnel and security agencies that have had to work under very unusual circumstances, putting their own lives at risk in the process. We salute all of them, the medical personnel and the operatives of the security agencies who have had to risk their lives in ensuring that those who are afflicted are managed and the spread of the disease is contained. The welfare of all Nigerians has been of utmost concern and a major policy thrust of the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari since inception. This also includes the inmates of our correctional facilities, serving terms, awaiting trial, or in the condemned criminal role, awaiting execution. For us at the Ministry of Interior, our mandate is very clear. The orientation must change from the punitive concept of imprisonment to correction and reformation, where inmates will be given opportunity to reflect, regret, repent, and be transformed, to be renewed and re-energized to begin a new and productive life as an honorable and law-abiding member of society. This will require that the inmates, though denied freedom of movement while in custody, be put in a decent environment and treated humanely as possible, in a way befitting their status as citizens with all dignity. They need to be well fed, decently housed, and given proper medical attention. Our correctional institutions have done a yeoman's job, and I must commend them for the reforms that have been carried out and the positive result we have seen. I'm happy that you clap for yourself. If you don't clap for yourself, it has been pitiable. So I'm glad that you appreciated yourself. So clap once again for yourself. However, we still have challenges with accommodation. About 250 facilities are inadequate to accommodate the over 74,000 inmates in our custody presently. You will recall that last month we presented to the world the ongoing construction of a 3,000 capacity custodial center in Kuje, Abuja. Before then, work had started in 2017 on a 3,000 capacity maximum security custodial center at Abuja in Kano State and is awaiting completion. We are therefore doing everything possible to overcome the accommodation challenges. Several of such high-capacity custodial centers are in the offing. Very many more are in the offing. However, a bigger issue that would positively affect accommodation at the custodial center is the review of criminal justice administration with regards to the inmates. And I'm happy the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation has spoken to it. For instance, our last audit shows that a disproportionate number of inmates are awaiting trial persons. In addition, we observed that A, some of the awaiting trial persons have spent 10 years or more in custody. B, some have no confirmed criminal case against them. C, some have had their cases determined, but could not pay the fines imposed on them by the courts. D, some are already old and weak, while E, some are very sick and infirm. Following these observations, the ministry has set in motion the machinery for the decongestion of our correctional facilities, but this has now become imperative with the outbreak and continued spread of COVID-19. The virus, it should be reiterated, has no known cure. The best advice given by medical experts is to maintain environmental and personal hygiene, particularly constant washing of hands and maintaining social distance. The Nigeria Correctional Service has been taking extra care to prevent the introduction and spread of the virus in their centers by improving the level of hygiene, suspension of social visits, and extra screening of new inmates, among others. However, this will not go far unless we drastically reduce the population of inmates and check the congestion. It is in this circumstance that the Ministry of Interior convened a meeting of relevant stakeholders, including the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, the Chief Judge of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, Controller General of the Nigerian Correctional Service, and the Director General of the Nigerian Intelligence Agency, NIA, to look into this matter and propose measures that could be taken to reduce the population at the custodial centers. Our meeting yielded positive results. At the end of the meeting, we agreed to recommend to the President, among others, to approve the report of the Presidential Committee on the Prerogative of Mercy, which was before him, in order to facilitate the congestion of custodial centers. The story of that, the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation has given already. The President has graciously approved this request and others. Please clap for the President. That is why we are here. In arriving at amnesty, various issues were looked into and several options were considered. But the most pertinent and accordingly adopted are A, old age. This is for inmates that are 60 years and above. B, those suffering from ill health that are likely to terminate in death. C, thank you. C, convicts serving 3 years and above and have less than 6 months to serve. D, inmates with mental health issues. And E, inmates with options of fine not exceeding 50,000 naira and having no pending case. Using these criteria, a total number of 2,600 inmates spread across our various custodial centers qualify to benefit from the amnesty. Let this be clear. This number that I've given are not federal offenders. They are state offenders. We must mention this figure to let Nigerians know that after due assessment of people in the custodial centers and using the criteria I have enumerated, these are those who are qualified to be pardoned or granted amnesty by the various subnational authority in the states. So the state governors will have to assent to our recommendation, which the President, through the Attorney General of the Federation, will pass on to them. But let me break them down. This includes 885 convicts who could not pay their fines, totaling 21,400,000 naira. That amount of money will be required by the subnational authorities to pay into their own treasury to ensure freedom for 885 convicts, 21,400,000 naira. From this number, at the federal level, the way it's put is not right. At the federal level, we have 41 inmates that are benefiting from the amnesty that the President has approved, 41. But in addition to these 41, the FCT, which is under the jurisdiction of the Chief Judge, is equally giving amnesty to 29 other inmates. So in total, 70 inmates will be given freedom today. 2 of these 70 inmates that will be given amnesty today will be granted, have been granted pardon by the president. That is, 2 of them will have no record of conviction. 2 of them, 2. Let it be clear, 2. Meji, Bill, I don't know the Igbo, what's the Igbo? Abo, 2 will be pardoned or have been pardoned. At this point, I'm pleased to inform you that 5 ex-convicts recommended for presidential pardon have been so pardoned by the president. 2 of them were eminent citizens of Nigeria at their time. Both of them are deceased. But they were eminent citizens of Nigeria. Courageous fighters for justice, democracy, and integrity of citizens. They are late Professor Ambrose Ali and late Chief Anthony Enaoro. Among the 5 that the president has pardoned are ex-Lieutenant Colonel Moses Effiong, Major E.J. Olarewaju, and Ajayi Olusola Balola. The Honorable Attorney General of the Federation has given us the process that will be taken legally to confirm this. But in the letter that the president sent through him to me, these 5 people have been granted presidential pardon. So, in the record of the Nigerian Custodial Center, or judiciary, they were never convicted. That's the meaning. Professor Ali was the governor of the old Bende State in the Second Republic, 1978 to 1983, and a great progressive, while Chief Anthony Enaoro was a foremost nationalist who moved the motion for Nigeria's independence. I must thank and commend President Buhari for demonstrating great statesmanship by pardoning these people who are part of the great Nigerian history. We will proceed from here to Kuje, Custodial Center, to release the 70 inmates that are there in a symbolic gesture of the freedom that have been given to 2,600 other inmates across the Federation, which the governors in their respective states will actualize later. The governors of the 36 states under whose jurisdiction the inmates were incarcerated will complete the exercise in line with our federal principle. It should be noted that this amnesty will not apply to inmates sentenced for violent and extreme offenses, such as terrorism, kidnapping, armed banditry, rape, human trafficking, culpable homicide, and so on. This should put paid to the wide and unfounded speculations and agitations that have been going around on the categories of inmates to benefit. Other measures requested and approved by Mr. President include: A, requested governors to facilitate the sitting of the State Prerogative of Mercy Committee in order to recommend the serving cases for release. That is, what we are saying here is this: even after the release of the first phase that we are putting forward, the Prerogative of Mercy Committee in each state should regularly provide room for the decongestion by going there to review cases and releasing the serving inmates. B, engage the Chief Justice of Nigeria to request all Chief Judges of the State High Courts to immediately embark on prison visits to identify and release the serving inmates. C. Engage the Chief Justice of Nigeria to consider taking steps to ensure the setting up of special courts in all states, including the FCT, to try cases of armed robbery, banditry, kidnapping, and other serious offenses in order to facilitate their speedy trial and conclusion. D. Engage the Chief Justice of Nigeria to ensure that Chief Judges of the states and FCT High Courts direct lower courts to comply with the requirement of the administration of criminal justice law in issuing remand warrants in criminal cases which are not within their jurisdiction. With these measures, within the shortest possible time, awaiting trial persons that have taken more spaces in our custodial centers will be drastically reduced and the centers will be decongested, as desired by all of us. Beyond the exigencies of COVID-19, we are exercising the prerogative of mercy in the firm belief that humans have innate capacity for goodness, even when they make mistakes which are precipitated by uncontrolled impulse, bad human companies, making bad personal choices and judgments, and environmental pressure. Even when, as they would, find themselves in the firm grip of the law and are justifiably sentenced and incarcerated, society owes them a second chance to repent and purge themselves of bad behavior to be able to recover the best versions of themselves. I am appealing to the beneficiaries of this amnesty to make the best use of it. The Attorney General of the Federation has said, when you are released, please go home and sin no more. And I'm supporting that call. Sin no more. The best way they can show appreciation is to truly repent and turn a new leaf and justify the confidence the government has reposed in them. They should work hard to prevent recidivism by avoiding circumstances and persons that predispose them to reoffending, in order that the government and society will not regret granting them this amnesty. I call on our correctional officers and men to work so swiftly and decisively in implementing this amnesty, and then decongest our custodial centers within the shortest possible time, believing that the governors will collaborate and cooperate with us. I commend your discipline, high sense of duty, patriotism, and sacrifice as you remain in the front line of the battle against the spread of COVID-19. In our nation, as well as in the custodial centers. Let's say this so that Nigerians will even appreciate you more. Since over a century of the creation of prisons and now custodial centers or correctional service, the Nigerian correctional or custodial centers had not witnessed any outbreak of epidemic. We must commend the officers and men of this service for always rising up to it to ensure that in spite of the challenges which are enormous that they face in the discharge of their duty, they have been quite efficient and highly professional in ensuring that what ails the entire larger society hardly comes into the custodial center. Kudos to you. You must remain steadfast and give people hope that the disease will be defeated and normal life will resume as soon as possible. Maintain social distance and other advisory from the relevant authority and agencies and medical officials. Urge your officers and men to stay at home while not on duty, while those who are in the various centers are equally encouraged as much as possible to observe these advisories. For as long as the lockdown lasts, let us obey the law and all regulations. I would also like to thank the various stakeholders that have worked with us to realize this objective, beginning from our President, President Muhammadu Buhari, who graciously granted all our requests, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, for his amazing cooperation, collaboration, and commitment to this. The Attorney General of Nigeria Intelligence Agency, for his own support. The Chief Judge of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory and Chairman of the Prison Decongestion Committee, Controller General of the Nigeria Correctional Service, once again, Director General of the Nigeria Intelligence Agency, several people who have been nudging us, pressing us, and urging us to do this, and others for their good disposition to interministerial cooperation. Of course, I will be failing my duty if I don't recognize the bureaucrats, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Interior, Solicitor General, and Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Justice, and all those who work with them in their various ministries. We thank you. We appreciate you. But don't rest on your oars until we decongest completely our custodial centers. In closing, let me conclude with this quote from the great South African president and universal icon, Nelson Mandela, who once said, and I quote, "You will achieve more in this world through acts of mercy than you will through acts of retribution," end of quote. I thank you all for being here and for your attention. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Please, may we be better for the Minister of Interior. It is better.
117. The facility remains peaceful and calm. May I have your permission to carry on, sir?
Enforce all the rules of taking in new people, regardless of status.
Yes, sir.
All your rules.
Stand up! Please!
Wait now. 33. It has turned to 33 from 31.
No, journalist. No journalist. What is it? I said no journalist. Can you move it?
We all stand as we welcome the Minister of Interior.
When we are experiencing the granting of amnesty and pardon and deserving inmates by Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, an exercise which is in keeping with international standards and within It is indeed an expression of constitutionalism. The President is no doubt vested with the constitutional powers to so grant amnesty and pardon. And so what we are today going to witness is a practical expression of the powers as vested in Mr. President. Indeed, this is all about separation of powers, where the judiciary has done its own part of the work as provided by law. Mr. President is now ultimately also exercising his own powers as constitutionally guaranteed. On a lighter note, Honorable Minister of the Interior permit me to say the Supreme Court may be seen as the last court to say, but beside that, there is another verdict which is being handed to me by Mr. President before the Supreme Court. Though not still as a court, but given a different verdict based on different circumstances, which is good for our country, checks and balances. We are indeed very happy to be part of this. I must say, arising from some of the presentations of the Gambazon Hall, we are in their need of expeditious disposal of cases. As rightly observed and stated by both the Minister of Interior and the Attorney General of the Federation, my Lord the Honorable the Chief Justice of Nigeria is very keen in ensuring speedy disposal of cases. So many devices have been put in place and many more are coming. Apart from exposing judicial officers constant training and bringing corrections to well-perceived errors in the course of the discharge of their respective members of judicial offices through the workings of the NJI, which is, by law, empowered to continue legal education for judicial officers. Not only that, it is not out of place make the point that in minor offenses, that is to say in the spirit of the congestion of the prison or correctional center, in minor offenses, prosecutory agencies that equally have powers to arrest should exercise restraint in arresting suspects on minor offenses. Even if they do, they should try to perfect administrative bail within their own parameters, within their own institution. Because once they come to court, they are imposing a duty on us to remand them pending investigation, except where bailable and bail is granted. But in a number of cases, they even raise objection, even in bailable offenses, and therefore make it impossible for the judiciary not to send them to custodial centers. So we are praying that they should learn to perfect granting of administrative aid to go a long way in decongesting the correctional centers. With these few remarks, I know that I have ministers here with the workload in their respective offices. Even with the lockdown, I also have mine. I will not make lengthy speech, but I pray that those that will go out today will go and sin no more. As is already said by the Honorable Attorney General and echoed by the Minister of Interior, which I'm also lending my voice, there may not be a second chance when you go out there and you find yourself in criminality. It means you have not learned anything, you have not shown remorse, and you have not shown appreciation to Mr. President for granting you this amnesty. The only way you can demonstrate your gratitude to God and to Mr. President is to abstain totally from crime and criminality. Not only abstaining, but also to make sure that you are good ambassadors of the Nigerian state by admonishing others not to indulge in crime and criminality. As you join your family members, I pray for you, joyous meeting with them, reconnecting with them, your children if you have any, and if you have never gotten married, you should not go out and start looking for a lady that will give you company for the rest of your life. I wish you the best.
Who have the peculiar law of benefiting from the amnesty of the president and the kind consideration of the chief judge and the minister, chief judge of FCT and minister of Abuja of the federal capital territory. Because I want to be most of you here, very few of you are beneficiaries of the presidential amnesty, very few of you. The others might be scattered over Nigeria. But the bulk of you here are beneficiaries of the kind consideration of the chief judge, who is the chairman of the Custodial Committee on the Contention and Correctional of Custodial Centers, as well as being the chief judge of the FCT. He took it upon himself to pay, to provide the money required by the judge of Abuja to settle the obligatory fine imposed on you by the courts. So we must commend him. What is most commendable is the fact that he did it in a record time. Were he to go through the official procedure, it might take weeks before you complete the year of freedom. But I've said I have nothing to say, and that my speech will be as delivered by the Comptroller General of the Operational Service. I must not fail to tell you whatever circumstance brought to me, whatever circumstance is past. Whatever, it's not my business. We are beneficiaries of the kindness of the president. Whatever circumstance and the kind of vision of the CA of the FCT. Whatever circumstance brought each and every one of you here is gone. Some of you are aged. Some of you are ill. Some of you are just beneficiaries of other parameters of assessing those that won't be released. Whatever is the circumstance that made you inmates of this center, put that circumstance behind you. From this moment, look at life differently, take all the lessons you have learned, either from your own personal introspection, reflection, or deep thinking, which is called meditation. Embrace life. Live it with hope, positive expectation, and the firm belief that the good Lord that has turned the hearts of our leader, the president, and people who have labored for weeks, if not months, to make this day possible, to be a good citizen. And I believe by your own conviction and commitment and the grace of God, will be a good example for all of us to applaud, will be a good example to all of us to share, be a good example of people that society would put forward as men who, after going to the valley of life, come up, reformed, renewed, rehabilitated, and ultimately good. I welcome you to the larger society with high expectation of good conduct and behavior. Congratulations.
It is my sincere pleasure being here in the capacity as the Attorney General of the Federation and indeed representing the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammad Buhari, to convey a message of mercy, a message of compassion, and indeed in the exercise of the constitutional powers vested in him by the Constitution on the prerogative of mercy. Today is a demonstration of the sensitivity of His Excellency, the President, against the background of the international and universal affliction associated with COVID-19, taking into consideration to indeed exercise mercy and compassion, seeking the intervention, the divine intervention of our God as it relates to our collective lives. Mr. President has proven to be conscious of the needs of the Nigerian student, regardless of their situation and circumstances. Our presence here this afternoon is a clear demonstration of that sentiment, that recognition, that spirit of mercy, that spirit of pardon that indeed has characterized the life and the spirit of the President as it relates to the Nigerian citizen. It is on this basis that I share the spirit of joy which you are indeed sharing this afternoon, arising from the fact that you are enjoying your freedom out of magnanimity, compassion, and indeed mercy extended to you by His Excellency, the President. As you are leaving the confines of the correctional service this afternoon, I implore you to exhibit greater conduct, to imbibe the spirit of forgiveness, to imbibe the spirit of uprightness in whatever you get into the larger society to do by way of earning a living. I equally join your family members in congratulating you for this great spirit of freedom that is bestowed on you by the President. I want to use this opportunity in the conclusion by way of urging the greater and larger members of the society to accept you, for you to be integrated fully, and then for you to earn a positive living as you go out to join the larger society. I once again congratulate you for enjoying your freedom. Thank you.
I will be glad to hear more positive things about you. Those of you who didn't have the opportunity to complete the education, please do so. Those of you who didn't have the opportunity to complete your skill or trade learning, please do so. But please don't value the self-pity, is when you live here, whatever friends you made here, that will make you go back to the world of crime and anxiety, forget them. You see for yourself that ultimately crime was not paid. You do not appreciate something and you lose it. You all lost your liberty, you all lost your freedom. Today, you have regained your liberty and regained your freedom. Please, don't ever lose it again. I shall remember you in my prayers and want you to know that the system will not be against you. I also want to take the opportunity to appeal to the people outside there that anybody can make a mistake in life. None of you make mistakes, many of you are just at the wrong places at the wrong time. All that should have forgotten. Today is a new day. You see, I remember I had a very funny driver. One day he annoyed me and I sacked him. When I got home, I told my wife that I sacked my driver. My wife told me, oh, there's got to be more patient. And I thought I was living rash. The following morning, from my window, I saw my driver, the one I sacked the previous day, he was cleaning my car. You know, I had to make good face. I was happy that he had told me, and I want to make good face. So I said, hey, what are you doing there? He said, I can't work now. I said, are you there? Did you know yesterday I sacked you? He said, Master, that was yesterday. Today is a different day. I wish all of you a good day.
And is a way of saying that this custodial center we are in today was established in 1989 with a capacity of 560. But as of today, the 9th of April 2020, it is locking 917. 150 completed, 767 unconvicted cases, awaiting trial cases, which means the number is far higher than is expected. So it is overflowing. And unfortunately, in the awaiting trial sector, about 349 are armed robbery suspects. 172 are culpable homicides. 50 are on terrorism list. Another 50 is on terrorism. About 62 are on drugs-related offenses. And then another 52 on other offenses related from various things. Sir, I want to put it on record that the administration of President Muhammad Buhari has done more than any other administration in this country. Not only the change of minister that occurred on the 31st of July 2019, but since the inception of this administration in 2015, we have witnessed a counter of changes that have occurred in the Nigerian Prison Service before and the Nigerian Correctional Service as it is called today. This place we are today was boasting of only 2 operational vehicles. Now today, Minister Sir, we have seen outside they are parking over 8 to 10 vehicles and more will come. That enhance our capacity. Minister Sir, you are witness to the groundbreaking ceremony we had in Kashi of the 3,000 capacity. All over. In fact, we have done so many infrastructural interventions in terms of cells, in terms of new facilities all over, which we are yet to function. Satellite, custodial centers, and other things. We have provided drugs. Looking at the area of these inmates that are before us today, that we are about to release, you can see clearly that their living condition has improved tremendously. This was not what it was before, because we lack the drugs, we lack the beds and beddings, and we lack so many basic things that can make the life of inmates very bearable. But now we are able to provide that under the administration of President Muhammad. So there is nothing I will say except to say that on behalf of the officers and men, I want you to convey our deepest appreciation to the President and Commander-in-Chief for what his administration has done to turn around the fortunes of the Nigerian Correctional Service. To the inmates, there is nothing I want to add, because my elders here have already spoken. The CDSCT, the Attorney General of the Federation, the Minister of Interior, and the Minister of Information and Culture. There is nothing I will say to you except, don't come back. Don't come back. Find a means of living. Whatever offenses, like my minister said, have brought you here, you know it. Don't go back into it. Avoid the aids of crime. For those of you who have learned certain trade, we will call you back to see that we do the aftercare services for you. If you have acquired a trade test, grade 3, grade 2, and grade 1. And for those who have also earned the presidential pardon, the 4 military personnel. Am I right? Please, you know what you did. Don't come back. Live a civil life. Forget about the military life you have had. Go back to the civil life and care for your families and be a good contributors to the society and to the development of this country. I thank you again.
My colleagues, that we will never go back to it and we will be outside there a good representative, a true ambassador and citizen of this very country. I thank God for all of you people, for the effort that you people have made for us to be here. I am sincerely happy to God on behalf of you. And I am here to plead on behalf of other inmates, awaiting trial especially, who have been here for 10 years, who have been here for 8 years, no court dates. I am begging the Attorney General, the Minister of Justice, that you people, as you people did for us to go out of this place, you people should do the same thing for them. As you people do it, I believe God sincerely that God will reward each and of you people who make it possible for any person in this place to go out of this place. I pray that God will grant you people the grace to do more for the freedom of women in Correction Center in the name of Jesus.